Okay, welcome back. We are ACI course 7, class 5. It's March 3rd, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them. That beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. Wonderful it will be when we can also help in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning karma and emptiness, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. Then turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. All right, last class we learned the first 9 of the 18 root bodhisattva vows. Which are behaviors to avoid, because those behaviors, when we do them, are called downfalls, defeats, because we've been defeated by the enemy of our ignorance that pushes selfishness. So things to avoid. I will avoid praising myself and criticizing others. I will avoid failing to give dharma or material assistance. I will avoid failing to accept someone's apology and striking another. I will avoid giving up the greater way and teaching false dharma. I will avoid stealing what belongs to the 3 jewels. I will avoid giving up the highest dharma. I will avoid taking away an ordained person's robes and the rest, removing them from the ordained status. I will avoid any of the immediate misdeeds, and I will avoid holding wrong views. And those first 4 have 2 parts each. So don't take both parts to break the vow. Either part will break it. So the first, I will avoid praising myself and criticizing others. The 2 parts are praising oneself or criticizing others. And we saw that for this to be breaking the vow, it's very specific circumstance. But in terms of planting karmic seeds, merit seeds, if we try very hard not to praise ourselves and criticize others, we won't ever get into the situation of breaking the vow kind of praising self and criticizing others that has to do with teaching qualities, etc. So the motivation for this one is out of self-gain, right? The possessiveness and pride. Then the second one, the 2 parts are I will avoid not giving dharma teachings to someone when they ask. and I will avoid not giving material assistance when they ask. And again, either or can break the vow, and it's motivated out of the possessiveness for the Dharma or possessiveness for our material things. The third one, the two parts are failing to accept an apology. Second part being striking someone out of anger. So again, it doesn't take both to break the vow. And the motivation underlying either of those two, of course, is anger. And then the fourth one is avoiding giving up the greater way or teaching false dharma. The false dharma was teaching something that you came up with and calling it Buddha dharma. Not that you can't share some ahas that you have, but make it clear that this is how I understand it. This is what the Buddha taught that I couldn't quite figure out, and this is right how I'm working with it, versus teaching something and saying or implying that it was Buddha's teaching. And giving up the greater way here meant saying that any of the collections of the scriptures of the Hinayana were not taught by the Buddha, like disrespecting them. And it's hard to believe that any trained Buddhist can do that, but not all Buddhists are trained. Right? You can be a very good Buddhist and not have been taught the scriptures. Right? Okay, so this class is the other 9 of the 18 root vows. And so just a list. And so here we go. Number 10, I will avoid the root downfall of destroying towns and such. So the and such means cities, countries, provinces. You know, it's like town is your local space. And then as you get bigger, in the United States, we have towns, cities, counties, states, like areas, Western United States, Mountain United States, Central United States. We have United States, we have continent, we have world, etc. So this means destroying, contributing to destroying within any of those spheres. And it's like, oh my gosh, like just living, we're contributing to destroying, aren't we? So it's like, how can we ever keep this, not break this vow? And the specifications show us that, in fact, this is one of the vows that most of us are not in the position to be able to break. So I love those vows because it's like hardly any effort at all. And you can go, yay, I kept vow, Bodhisattva vow number 10. It doesn't mean I get sloppy about my use of resources. I don't, I'm very careful. But the Bodhisattva vows, like technically the Mahayana, and then especially the Diamond Way teachings, they were designed for busy, involved, active people in charge of other people. And in those times, in Buddhist times, it was the royalty and the aristocrats. And because they were the ones making decisions about taking care of the king's people. Right? The king's in charge. And then you've got his ministers and the aristocracy. And so in that category of people who turn to their spiritual path, there is this way that they can progress on their spiritual path without, by using their circumstances instead of rejecting them and going to live in a monastery or a cave. Some did that, of course, but at this other level, the Mahayana teachings were designed to help those people make their decisions for how to help, right, the people they were overseeing in a way that was, compassionate and wise, instead of selfishly and badly motivated. So within that category, the king and his ministers, they were the ones responsible for whether a place was enhanced or destroyed. And destroying means when the king orders his army, right, to go and destroy that other area, destroy the people of the other area and the area so that they can have it. It's like, to hear myself say it, it's like, how does that make sense? You destroy a place so it becomes yours, then you have to build it back up again. It's like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. But it happens a lot in human history, doesn't it? So the motivation is that this leader person wants to destroy that place. They want to harm the people. They are afflicted by desire, ignorant dislike, hatred, and ignorance itself. You'd have to be wildly afflicted to go destroy places. And it's like, how could a Mahayana leader do that? And probably a Mahayana leader wouldn't or couldn't. So if you're a leader and you might have done that, and now you're a Mahayana with Bodhisattva vows, you aren't going to do it. And it saves a whole lot of people and a whole lot of destruction. So this vow, the broken vow isn't about striking people out of anger, although you're ordering that done. That's a different vow that you would be breaking. This one's about how the place gets destroyed. In destroying the place, you're also stealing people's stuff. Stealing it not in the sense of taking it, but stealing it in the sense of destroying it so they don't have it anymore. Unless, of course, you steal stuff too. But that's dealt with in another vow, particularly, of course, the Sangha, stealing things from the Sangha. So this one has to do with the property that gets destroyed. And again, unless we are in charge of an area, we are not in the position to break this vow, thank goodness. But in the onion skin theory thing, we can see how is it that I can more carefully avoid contributing to the destruction of my place and any place where I'm at. And those ways are really so easy. Use less water, right? Use less resources. Wipe up after yourself wherever you go. Just leave the place nicer than when you got there, as nice as it was when you got there. Number 11, I will avoid the downfall of teaching emptiness to a person who's not yet mentally prepared. So again, this is a very specific circumstance, and just the words, it doesn't convey it. in this condition, the person you're teaching emptiness to is someone who's not studied it carefully before, but they're a person who already has their wishing bodhicitta. So they are inspired to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. We can have that inspiration without much understanding of emptiness. Understanding emptiness and karma shows us how it can happen, how we can bring that about. But to just hear that one can achieve that and the benefits, what you're like when you achieve it, many of us were attracted to that before we understood karma and emptiness. So suppose there's someone who hasn't studied emptiness much, but they have their bodhicitta, and now they're coming for teachings on emptiness, and you, the teacher, teach the highest version of emptiness to them, and as a result, they get afraid. And out of their fear, they turn away from the Mahayana teachings and instead take up the Hinayana. When they turn away and take up the Hinayana, that's when our vows get broken. So the teaching of emptiness, we have all those different levels of understanding what no self, nature, and dependent origination are. And as we grow in our own practice, we'll actually see how our own reactions to circumstances in our life reveal what level of understanding of emptiness and dependent origination we are functioning at. And as we get more aware of those different nuances, then our ability to match the teaching on emptiness to the student being taught gets more specific. And we would theoretically be wise enough to be able to not give them a teaching on emptiness that would lead them thinking, oh, the nothing is anything, and so nothing matters. And the tagging, understanding the no self nature of things and self to the appearing nature of things being a result of our behavior is what helps prevent someone's misunderstanding of what's meant by emptiness, because it always has the component of behavior modification motivation. So Geshe-la teaches so beautifully that we always tag our emptiness understanding with our virtue understanding, with our behavior, which is what helps protect from this breaking this vow. And it when you think the circumstances through, what if you've got a group of people on Zoom, half of which, right, I can't even see, and you're teaching emptiness? How do you know if somebody goes, freaks out, I'm never coming back again, I'm leaving Mahayana, and switch to Hinayana, and you never hear from them again? How would you know? Have you broken your vow? And there are all these nuances. So the purpose of all these vows is to be careful with our behavior. be careful with our behavior. So Jesselyn Kappa says, if you're paying attention and you're watching faces and you're hearing responses and you've checked the person and you think they're ready for hearing the highest way, and you teach them the highest, and they, leave the Mahayana as a result of your teaching, you don't break your vow, right? Because you tried. It's just to cavalierly teach the highest to everybody, and then someone freaks out and drops out is what breaks the vow. Number 12. I will avoid causing someone to turn back from total enlightenment. So we make the distinction between total enlightenment and enlightenment. Total enlightenment means I want to reach Buddhahood, which is freedom from my own mental afflictions and the omniscience through which I can help everyone get free from their mental afflictions. Actually, the omniscience through which I see everyone already free of their mental afflictions, but not seeing themselves that way. My sentence went this way. Versus our goal of ending all of our mental afflictions and seeds for them. Nirvana. So nirvana reaches the state of peace. Buddhahood reaches the state of having achieved their own goals and the goals of others. This vow is when another person already has some level of wish for enlightenment. So they're on their Mahayana path. And you, the one with the Bodhisattva vows, for some reason say to them, look, you'll never be able to do those 6 perfections well enough. Why don't you strive instead for the goals of the listener or self-made Buddhas, and you'll manage to liberate yourself from the cycle of suffering. And then when, because of your advice, they actually do switch their goal from reaching Buddhahood to reaching nirvana, that's when our vow is broken. Geshe-la says everybody's capable of the Mahayana practices just by applying the habit. Master Shantideva says that again and again and again. Just make a habit of it. And so for us to have the judgment that someone who has the aspiration for the Mahayana, you're never going to make it. It's just flat wrong. It's a misunderstanding. And I don't know what the motivation would be. It wasn't specifically identified. That when the other takes your advice and shifts, we've planted a seed in our mind that's the antithesis of I will become a Buddha so that I can help everybody become a Buddha. Do you see why it's so dangerous? I'll help everybody become a Buddha, but you can't do it, and you can't do it. That's just like wrong. So number 13, I will avoid the root downfall of causing a person to give up the morality of freedom. Right? So number 12 is giving up Mahayana. This is giving up the pratimoksha vows. And it means any of those individual freedom vows. ordained or lay. And they're to break this vow, it's like it doesn't make sense. The first one was we said we influenced them in a way that they gave up the Mahayana and came down to Hinayana. This sounds like it's saying, well, now you influence them in some way that they even go out of the Hinayana completely. But that's not what this is saying. Tsongkhapa clarifies that this circumstance, there's a person who is keeping their freedom vows very nicely. And then you, the one with bodhisattva vows, say to them wrongly, of course, what's the use of keeping your pratimoksha vow? They'll only take you so far. Come on up to the greater way. Develop your wish for enlightenment instead. Get bodhicitta, study the Mahayana. You'll be able to stop all your bad deeds and go on to total Buddhahood. You don't need those freedom vows when you're practicing the higher way. When that person hears what you say and turns away from their individual freedom morality, our vow is broken. And Tsongkhapa goes on to say, that idea that once you're a Mahayana or Diamond Way practitioner, you don't need your lower vows anymore. He says that is so wrong. It's like a rain of hail on the tender spring wheat crops, that it just destroys the crop. It destroys your happiness, you, the farmer of the crops, and it destroys the happiness of everyone you were gonna contribute to their bread by the wheat you grow. It destroys the happiness of yourself and others. That should be thrown away like so much garbage. Apparently, in his time, there was a lot of that opinion going around. Practice the Mahayana. You don't need to mess with the Hinayana. And again, we've been so well trained, it's like, I can't even imagine somebody saying that. But human nature being as it is, we think our way is the best. And if we entered straight into the Mahayana, we would think, oh, that Hinayana stuff, it doesn't really work. But error number one, maybe it wasn't even taught by Buddha. Error number two, you particular person, come on, just leave it, come up to the higher way. Error number three. We've learned again and again, our bodhisattva morality is based on the individual freedom vows, the individual freedom morality, avoiding those 10 non-virtues. Number 14, the root downfall of holding that up. I will avoid the root downfall of holding that a person cannot eliminate desire and the rest by following the way of the learner. So here's a new term. The learner is a catch-all phrase for listener and self-made Buddha. Now, are there really categories of people that are listeners or self-made Buddhas? I don't really know. But what they mean by the category of listeners means the person whose attraction is to the teachings about the four Arya truths, and who sees that those four Arya truths and the scriptures related to them is enough. It's enough to guide my behavior, to help me get free from my suffering. Then the self-made Buddha, Pratyeka Buddha level of practitioner who are not Buddhas and they're not self-made. They're just in this, the lifetime that we're talking about. They don't appear to have a teacher directly, and they are making great progress. And they appear to be very advanced practitioners, but they have no teacher, and their attraction to study and practice is the 12 links of dependent origination. And if you've been following the mixed nuts, course, you'd see how deep that teaching can go. We first go through it, it seems like, oh, this is describing how we go through life. And then we realize, well, actually, it takes 3 lifetimes to get around the wheel once. And then we get into it more deeply, and actually it's going on moment by moment. And so it really is a deep, rich teaching that you could spend a whole career studying and practicing from. Those teachings don't move into speaking about growing compassion. It's there, it's in there, of course, but it isn't the emphasis necessarily. So this 14th root vow is to say, to say to someone, no matter how much one trains in these 2 tracks, you could never actually eliminate your mental afflictions in their entirety. And it's not true. You can eliminate your mental afflictions entirely by practicing the 4 noble truths, by practicing the 12 links of dependent origination. You can go on to experience emptiness directly, motivated to reach nirvana. And then that experience will put you on the conveyor belt to burning off your mental afflictions, and your behavior will stop planting seeds for more, and we will reach that state that's free of mental afflictions and seeds for more, nirvana. It does not include omniscience, but those teachings will take a person to nirvana practiced well. And to say that they won't is a misunderstanding. If you, the one saying it, are right, because you'd be misunderstanding as well. It could be that what you mean by ending all mental afflictions is including the obstacles to omniscience. And if you're including obstacles to omniscience, it is true that those teachings and the practices that we do won't end those mental afflictions, which again is why Geshe tries to help us be so precise in our language. Because of these nuances, we ourselves want to understand that we can reach freedom from mental afflictions and seeds for more and still have the blockers, the dust from all of our ignorance that blocks our mind's experience of omniscience. So this is saying to someone who studies the Hinayana, either level, look, those won't in fact help you stop your mental afflictions. It's wrong. They will. Buddha taught them. And that's what he taught them for, was to help people to stop their own suffering. This vow we break just when the other person hears what you say and understands what you're saying. They don't have to believe you for you to break your vow. anytime we disrespect the Hinayana, we're flirting with this vow, because it's showing ourselves a bit of arrogance, right? We must be better because we're on Mahayana. And of course, it's like not true whatsoever. Mm. The practices and studies of listener and self-made Buddha were taught by Buddha, of course, right? Were intended for personal use, individual freedom vows, individual freedom behavior. As Mahayanas, we need to be doing that too. It's why it's called the path shared in the Lamrim. Okay. There's a verse 14 and a half, says Jetsongkhapa. It's another, I will avoid criticizing someone else that's motivated by the desire for others' admiration of oneself. And Jetsongkhapa said he left it out of his discussion of the 18 root bodhisattva vows because it's a repetition of number 1. But apparently in the sutras, it is listed as a separate vow because it comes out of a circumstance where your motivation for fame or gain, like from number 1, comes up in a circumstance where you're comparing yourself to someone else, another teacher. So there's you, teacher, and the other teacher, like before. This one is saying, in a circumstance where you claim that the other teacher is motivated by fame or gain, that person, they just teach to get more support. Their motivation is pride or possessiveness. Mine is not. Right? So it's this very specific circumstance when the reason you're doing this is like you're jealous. You yourself want more praise and gain. You're not admitting it. You're saying, no, they want that. So you can see this is a bit different than the other, in that there's also this lying piece inside. And whether the other one is teaching out of praise or gain doesn't matter. You're giving the impression to others that they are and saying that you're not. And that's where the vow gets broken. I'm not teaching that way. They are, when in fact you are. And you know you are, which is so hard. Like, how can a bodhisattva who has vows not recognize that about themselves? But you know how slippery our mental afflictions are. So this one adds the jealousy piece, which we didn't mention in vow number 1, but it would have to be in there too. Or why would you be, speaking badly about another teacher at all? And it really is verbal speech. Our minds do these things, but we're smart enough to just say, shut up in there, right? And put something good out of our mouth instead. That's the practice of keeping the vows. Okay. Number 15. I will avoid the root downfall of professing the complete opposite. So professing the opposite is code for claiming you've seen emptiness when you haven't, or implying you've seen emptiness when you haven't. There are other spiritual attainments that we can imply or say that we have that we don't, that would also damage this vow. But the breaking of this vow is specifically giving the impression that we've seen emptiness directly when we have not. So he says this again, to fully break this vow. It's a pretty specific situation. I mean, it would be specific, just flat out saying to somebody, I've seen emptiness, when you haven't, which you wouldn't anyway. If you're well trained, you wouldn't. So he says, you break this vow if, when you are teaching emptiness to someone else, and you say, now, you just meditate like this. Meditate the way I've taught you, and you'll come to see emptiness and become just like me. Do you see the implication? You haven't flat out said you've seen emptiness directly, but you've implied it in that way. The downfall's complete when the person grasps your words. You, right? You see them grasping your words and you know it's a lie, right? A lie about the highest thing. Very dangerous in terms of what we will hear, going forward. What we will hear from teachers, what we won't hear from teachers, how our speech will be heard by others. And Geshe-la shares that if you are a monk or a nun, by doing this, you've also broken your vow about lying about spiritual attainments. So this Bodhisattva vow is specific to emptiness, but there are other vows about not giving the wrong impression about one's own other attainments. Root vow number 16. I will avoid the root downfall of accepting what belongs to the three jewels when someone presents it to me. So we had a previous vow, I will avoid stealing from the three jewels. This one is, I will avoid accepting property that has been stolen from the three jewels. Again, the circumstances around this vow were that in the olden days, where there were multiple monasteries in an area within a king's kingdom, for instance, and somebody got upset with somebody else in another monastery, and somehow one monastery had some kind of dominion over another, and that somehow the one monastery is more favored than the other. And as a result, the officials go to the unfavored monastery and, take some of their stuff. And then that stuff is taken to the favored monastery and then offered to the favored monastery. And if the favored monastery any person in charge had bodhisattva vows and they accepted that stuff, they would break their vows. Do you see? So it would be delicate to reject an offering from, whoever took the stuff. It like really slippery, isn't it? And it's like, well, if we're not in a position, right, to be accepting stolen goods, one monastery to another, one Dharma center to another, thank goodness, I don't think that happens much. But in other ways, when someone makes an offering to us, like, it would be really rude. Like, do you say, oh, did you procure this legally? I don't know how to actually handle it. If one has a suspicion that what's being given or offered, was procured in some kind of harmful way, this vow is saying, use your good judgment as to whether or not you accept what's being offered. And it really would be a higher interaction with this other person to say thank you, but no thank you. Right? There are circumstances where when someone's offering you something, you say thank you, but no thank you. From a bodhisattva perspective, it's not because you don't want the thing, it's not because you don't like the person, but because you think the person will somehow be harmed by having made the offering. Right? Either they really didn't have the resources, or they're going to get in trouble with their family or something, right? It would take a high level of wisdom to make that judgment. So this one, again, is one of those that we're probably not ever going to be in the circumstance to fully break the vow. But when we do the onion skin thing, we have a higher level of awareness of where things might come from that are being offered or given to us. And then from our side, we flip it around as well. What does that mean about things that I procure in order to offer or give to others? I see. If there was any slipperiness anywhere in my behavior, I'm going to fine tune it going into having bodhisattva vows. For this vow to break, you don't have to steal it yourself. Of course, if you steal it yourself, you break the vow. It could have been stolen for you. You could send somebody to steal something. And when you take ownership, you break this vow. Yeah, okay. Number 17. I will avoid the root downfall of rejecting the practice of quietude and giving possessions of meditators to those whose practices is recitation. So again, a very specific circumstance for this vow. So another vow that, we're not really in the position to ever break. So it's like, yay. It has to do with making unfair rules. So we would have to be in the position where we're the one making and or enforcing the rules within which a group of people live. So this one is specific to this situation where in a given Dharma group, historically it was monasteries, there would be groups of people who are more inclined to their study and their recitation of the prayers and probably mantra practice. And there are those that are more inclined to meditation. And the meditators then would spend a lot of time on their cushions while the reciters are sweeping the floors, keeping the temple, cooking the meals, right? Doing the prayers for people, going to the homes of the people that support the monastery and reading the sutras in their homes. Like, they're doing the stuff. And the meditators are just sitting on their cushions. Remember Master Shantideva, Mr. Three Thoughts, and how much trouble he got into because all he did was meditate, eat, and poop. And then it's like, oh my gosh, who was this guy? So apparently, historically, what would happen is there would get to be resentment between the doers and the meditators, as if one was better than the other. And then the person in charge, the abbot in charge, would unfortunately get included in that, don't know what, and would then act to take resources used for the meditators and divert it to the benefit of the other group, the reciters. And, it's hard to imagine. It says take possessions from the meditators and give it to the reciters. And I don't know, I thought as the monastics, you don't have any possessions. So I don't really know what that means. But you can see there's a division being made, a preference for this group over that group. And this vow is to avoid making any such rule where there's a preference given for this group over that group, is what this is talking about. And we break the vow when we make this rule, right? And see it instigated. So if we're not in a position for making such rules in groups of Dharma practitioners, we're probably safe on this one. But where else are we the one in charge of making rules? And do we have preferences? Of course we have preferences. It's not that a bodhisattva doesn't have preferences. It's that they don't act from those preferences. Remember that term equanimity? It doesn't mean, oh, I'm going to see everybody equally. It's, I'm going to treat them all equally. Equal love, equal concern, whether I like them or not, right? Whether they're my favorite or not. So this vow is motivated by this underlying dislike or discrimination of one group for another, or one person for another. Let's take a break now. I really only have a few minutes more, but let's take our break and we'll go into Route 18. I'll pause. Thank you, Ali. I saw your note. Okay, root downfall number 18. I will avoid the root downfall of discarding the wish for enlightenment, giving up my bodhicitta. This vow number 18 is the most serious vow to avoid breaking, the most serious vow to keep growing. And it comes specifically from the Sutra on Skillful Means. And what this one means is giving up our intention to reach our total Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In whatever way that gets broken, right? Because there's really the two factors, my total Buddhahood and all sentient beings. And all the other vows, they have certain circumstances and nuances, and we can onion skin thing them so that we don't ever get close to doing the core vow. And some of them we're not ever going to be in the circumstances, at least in this lifetime, where we could break them. And so we're, kind of safe in that way. But this one, it can get broken in a moment of reactivity, because this one's about the feeling, I don't want to do it, right? It's not, oh, I don't think I can. It's not, man, this is getting so hard. It's not, this is going to take so long. It's, I don't, if they're going to be like that, I'm not going to do it. Right? It's a total reject. And it's it's ugly, but the thing is, whatever the circumstance that triggered those seeds ripening, boy, our our junksem is broken. Our that very mind heart that was inspired by becoming Buddha for the benefit of all beings is just gone for an instant. And it's it it can stay gone is the thing. That's why it's so dangerous. It can be all of a sudden like, I don't know what I was doing all those years. What was I thinking? Right? It can build and build and build until it's like, oh, just completely off your this path. And it would let me tell you a story. So there is this Mahasiddhi, I think it's Virupa. Is he the one that has just the one eye? Anyway, one of these great bodhisattvas, he's walking along, and this old hag, it's always an old hag, he comes across an old hag, and she recognizes him, and she says, oh, you're Mr. So-and-so, that great bodhisattva, right? And he goes, well, yeah. And she goes, well, bodhisattvas will do anything for anybody in their quest to become a Buddha, right? And he goes, right. And she says, well, you know what? I need your eyeball. Would you give me your eyeball? And he says, of course. And he reaches in and takes his right eyeball out with his left hand and hands it to her. And she goes, ah, you touched your eyeball with your left hand. I can't use it. She throws it on the ground and stomps on it. And in that moment, he has this feeling, oh man, if people are going to be like that, I don't think I want to do this. Like Vink, and they say his bodhicitta was gone for an instant. And this fellow had such great goodness that in the next instant, he's regretting it, right? And his regret protects him and he gets it back. But they say he did, as a result, bounce into a hell realm and bounce out at the end of that lifetime. And so he goes on to be a one-eyed guy. And they say that people would tease him about his one eye. And he would say to them, I see more with my one eye than you'll ever see with your two, right? Because, right, his wisdom, right? He's really seeing things with his third eye. So the story says that the old hag was really a demon. And a demon means these negative forces that arise to challenge us when our virtue is growing, right? So as we make stronger and stronger efforts to overcome our selfishness, our ignorance, it seems like things can get worse for a while. Or when things are going really well, all of a sudden there's this shift and things go bad. And the one way to interact with those issues are to call them our own karmic seed demons arising to help us burn off our past ignorance. And it's hard because are they real people? Was she a real old hag? Yes, she's real. And yes, she's a ripening demon from his own karmic pool, right? Challenging him Did he pass the test? Like, yes, right? He unhesitatingly gave her his eyeball. And I relate to that feeling of, man, if that's how they're going to be, he pops right back in. But we can see how fast our, right, that reaction can happen. And if the next series of seeds that are coming out of that is that how we ruminate on when somebody's done something harmful to us, that we keep running it over in our mind again and again and again, that's going to keep the reaction. Well, if they're going to be like that, right? And pretty soon, right, our seeds for the practice is just gone. And it happens. It really does happen. So this one is most dangerous. There, I hope you never have an instant where you think, well, if they're going to be like that. But if it does happen, and you find yourself, having this heart twist of why am I doing this? Think of Mr. Virupa, right? Happened to him too. And instant regret put him right back on his feet. And then check that mind for the rumination effect, right? Reviewing it, reviewing it, reviewing it. So hard to break that cycle. So we actually have 3 vows that have to do with rejecting the Dharma. One of them is saying the Mahayana, one of them is saying Buddha didn't teach it, which of course is mistaken. The other is saying those Mahayana ideas are not right, right? Whatever those teachings are, they're mistaken. And then this one is, I don't want to do it anymore. Not doubting the truth, not doubting whether they're Buddhist teachings. I just give up. I don't want to. Okay. Now, we've heard all along that in order to fully break these vows, we have to have those 4 states of mind, really ugly states of mind, in mind as we're doing and have done the deed, which we'll learn those 4 next week, I think, or next class. But this vow does not require those 4 ugly states of mind because it happens so quickly, right? In an instant, we've decided we don't want to, or just said we don't want to anymore. So number 9, about holding wrong views, and number 18, don't require those 4 chains. Number 9 doesn't happen in an instant. Number 9 does take some rethinking. It will take a circumstance where, things have gotten so hard that we're rethinking our point of view. We do need to come to a new logical conclusion as to the nature of our reality. And so that one takes some time. Number 18 really just is in this life circumstance that suddenly, it's gotten too hard and we give up our wanting. Yeah. So you've now heard the 18 root bodhisattva vow. And it means these are behaviors that I must be inclined to do. And I'm going to train myself to be on alert to avoid doing these behaviors to the very best of my ability. And I will need to check my behavior regularly to see how well I'm on track in order to become more and more familiar with these behaviors as guidelines. Geshe-la says, when we first hear something new, that's the time to act on it. because it's fresh, it's interesting, it's new. When we hear the Bodhisattva vows again, our mind will say, yeah, I've heard that before. And we can still learn, of course, but it's a different response when we rehear something that's familiar. So he says, learn these, memorize them, come up with some enjoyable way to be tracking your own ability to live according to them. If you live in a group of practitioners, it's helpful to ask the ones closest to you to help you keep your vows. You give somebody permission to gently, sweetly, kindly point out when we are perceiving something through our own ignorant, selfish lens, because it's hard for us to see ourselves doing that. And it makes us vulnerable to someone's judgment. So, pick somebody that isn't judging you, but is helping you. Or you yourself determine, if I'm going to help people learn to live by their vows, I need to demonstrate how that looks to others, right? And live by my vows as best as I can as my way of helping my Dharma community. The key, of course, with Bodhisattva behavior is it's motivated by compassion and love, not by, I know my vows better than you. You're not behaving according to the way everybody is supposed to behave here. We're not being the judgment keeper. We're being the helper. So before one decides to ask for vows, we can look and see, are any of these behaviors are they behaviors that I'm inclined to do? Even in the more outer onion skin thing. And if we find that there are some we might find ourselves struggling with, we can already, before we take the vows, work with those situations and see if we can gain some confidence in different reactions to common situations before we ask for having the vows to live that way. It's a really useful position to be in. And remember, when we learned you can take a ceremony to grow your bodhicitta, just your wish, and then you take the ceremony to actually get the vows. And even before taking the ceremony to get the wish, you can still look at these vowed behaviors and see, it's like, oh, which ones might I have trouble with? And let's see what life would be like if I had the vow. Let's see what it would be like and see if I can actually do it. And when we gain a little bit of confidence, that's when we say, I think I'm ready to ask for vows. Okay, so that's this class. You have what you need for your homework because it's the vows. And I thought what we could do for the rest of class is go through the vows and flip them over into the positive behavior and envision what a bodhisattva keeping their vows well might look like. Just for fun. It's not, Geshe-la didn't do it. It's not, there's no homework quiz, but I thought it would be fun to give ourselves a vision. So Kongli, yes, ma'am. Oh, Kongli's frozen. Am I frozen or is it Kongli?
Actually, I have a question, teacher.
Yes, please. Okay. Please come again. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can't. Go ahead.
Okay. So when teacher explained all this whiles, to me it's kind of like a restraint to something. I mean, it's kind of like tied us up to do something. Restrains us from doing something,
Right.
and actually is kind of like if let's say we are taking up the vows and we can do it, do we have double bonus for doing that if let's say we are taking up the vow, rather than if let's say we are not actually taking the vows, and then we can follow, I mean we can do all these things without the vows. You
Yes.
get what I mean? Yeah. So
Yes.
because yeah, if let's say when I see all this is really like um kind of heavy if let's say we cannot follow, and then straight away we go to hell, and it's kind of like the I mean the penalty is quite heavy. So if let's say we take vows and then we can follow, do we have double bonus for that?
You get double bonus by
I
having
mean,
vows to avoid behavior, because every moment you're not doing that behavior, you're gathering the goodness of the vow to not do it.
uh-huh.
Without the vow, the only time you gather the goodness of not doing that behavior is when you're in the situation where you would have done the behavior and you don't.
Oh, so which means if let's say we are taking vows, every minute if we are not doing that, we are getting bonus. I mean, we are getting merits.
Yes,
So so this is the different if let's say we are not taking the vows, is it?
right, right,
Oh,
right.
okay,
That's
okay.
the benefit of vows. And
Oh,
that's
okay.
why the vows are are mostly stated in the negative. I vow to avoid such and such. Because if we said, I vow to never kill, we would not be able to keep that vow. And then we would get the negative karma of killing and the negative karma of breaking the vow.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So to have vows, you're getting bonus, but to break a vow, you're also getting bonus,
Okay.
right?
Okay, okay.
So it is risky.
Oh, okay. Because I see, it's quite serious if let's say we cannot follow, I mean, every
Right.
minute if let's say we cannot follow. Okay, thank you. Thank you, teacher.
Exactly. All right. So yes, Pia.
Hi, teacher. One question. There are vows which for me seems to be like very easy to work with. Like, for example, the first one, praise myself and criticize others. This is something that I recognize in me. And I think, okay, I can work very well on this every day and try to do it better. But there are other vows like, for example, the one of taking the robes of a monk, it's like, how can I work with this bow?
Right. And that's the beauty of having vows, is that you're not, right, you're not in a situation to ever damage that vow. So, yay, right? There's a vow you're keeping. Then to actually work with it, short of that, would be, underlying that vow would be respecting people on their spiritual path, respecting people who have revealed that they're dedicated to their spiritual path. How can I better respect others for anything?
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, right. Thank goodness most of these, we aren't in a situation to even be tempted. So we find the ones where, oh my gosh, I see me in that one. And we work with that. So let's see, just for fun, let's flip them, let's hear them, and then brainstorm what it would look like in the positive. So I'll give the example, the first one. I will avoid praising myself for personal gain. So you could say, well, the flip over is just never say anything good about yourself. But then the next step flip over would be praise other people, admire other people. Can I make the habit of everybody I'm interacting with? I know in my own mind something that I admire about them. And can I bring into the conversation some way in which I say to them, wow, right? That's really amazing that you do such and such. Can I get myself to praise another person when I'm interacting with them? Right? Do we make that habit? Like, I don't generally, but I can imagine myself admiring others, right? And showing it in my speech. So the second one, criticizing others for personal gain. Flip that over. What would that be like for you, the Bodhisattva? Anybody care to play?
What is that, teacher? I want to try.
What's the opposite of criticizing others for personal gain?
Praised.
Yeah, praising others, right?
Uh-huh.
So the two of them end up being the same opposite result. I'll avoid praising myself. I will avoid criticizing others. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to admire and try to praise others, either
Uh-huh.
to them or to others. Praise others to others.
Okay. But
Yeah?
but normally I think, I mean, before I studying this, we tend to, like, on and off, we do criticize others, so so we cannot say for guarantee, 100%, we are going to praise others, and then, and I mean, sometimes when we are not aware or when we are angry, so we tend to
Exactly.
do, yeah, so.
Exactly. And that's why the vow is not always praise others, because we can't.
Yeah.
Right. So we're just imagining. So here's you, the Bodhisattva, admiring, right? Whether you come out of your mouth or not, what does it feel like to be around somebody who's admiring others? It feels nice, right?
Uh-huh.
Next, I've got the wrong glasses on. I will avoid failing to give the Dharma out of possessiveness. So flip that over.
Teachings are the Dharma.
Yeah, teaching. Well, what if you're not in the position to teach yet?
Okay, admire. I mean, don't criticize, don't go up to the stage of, criticizing, and then you just, like, you can do like admiring, or you rejoice and things like that.
Right.
Sometimes.
Show by example, right? Show the Dharma by example. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
I have a friend who has these little cards that say "You matter" on it. They're pretty little cards. No, and she carries them with her, and she hands them to people. She leaves them where somebody will see them. Just a little "You matter" card, right? It's this heartfelt sharing the Dharma, right? This outgoing feeling. Next one, failing to give material assistance out of possessiveness. What would the opposite be?
Sorry, come again.
What would the opposite be to failing to give material assistance?
Give materialistic.
Yeah, right, be generous,
Be generous.
be generous. But I only have so much. Yeah, be a little bit generous. It doesn't have to be big things. Can we be generous with our speech? That doesn't cost us anything. Can we be generous with our thoughts? Yes, that doesn't take away, right? Can we be generous with our time? Yes, it says material things, but not limited to that. I will avoid failing to accept an apology. Flip that around.
Accept it.
Accept it, right? Even when the apology says, oh, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but, right? Okay, fine, good enough. Okay. Maybe even that feeling of they owe me an apology. Drop that. Whose seeds was it anyway? No. Is there anybody I owe an apology to? Yeah. Striking another person. You know, the opposite, don't strike, obviously, but what's the opposite further? Yeah, be gentle, smile, ask them, you know, you look like you could use a hug. Next one. I will avoid giving up the greater way by saying that the scriptures of this way were not spoken by the Buddha. You know, we're not going to be a bodhisattva going around saying scriptures were spoken by Buddha, you know. But it would, there's judgmentalism in here. There's thinking we know better, maybe would make us verbalize an opinion about a scripture that's not based in fact. Do we do that kind of thing? Yes. You know, it's not non-bodhisattva to have an opinion. But it's very difficult to have an opinion that is based in enough knowledge of the circumstance about which we have our opinion so that our opinion can really be well educated, right? I mean, I see it a lot right now in what I'm following, trying to work with my seeds to see a change. And I find myself falling into that, getting little bits of information and putting it together into a big picture and then thinking I know what's going on. All I know is what's going on for me and my seeds ripening, which tells me what I need to work on. But I also think that what I think about this situation, I should share with other people and they should agree with me, right? And that's where the damage comes. I can share. I see it like this, and so my response is like that, and I can change my response to be this. But if I think everybody else needs to go, oh yeah, you're right, I should do like you, and they don't, then I will, right, reject a little bit. So it's, right, this is just freewheeling about what it would be like to be the bodhisattva who doesn't have any tendency to judge the teachings as if they aren't valid. Trying to be one who doesn't judge others' opinions as not valid. Trying to share my opinions as my opinions and not imposing them on others. Tricky, right? Tricky bodhisattvahood. The next one, teaching false dharma. Yeah, me too, Ali. Teaching false dharma, we all have our own unique experiences. And our unique experiences help others recognize and have their own unique experiences. But to make it clear that they are our unique experiences based on the Buddha's teachings, our Lama's teachings, is what makes this clear. So the damage would be thinking that my unique experience is more valid or more important or more wise than the Buddhist teachings, versus keeping our own mindset of, oh, this is how it is unique to me. Buddha taught this for me, unique to me for this. So I think it's a level of arrogance, checking our own pride and arrogance. Then the next one is about avoiding stealing from the 3 jewels. What's the opposite of that?
Giving again, giving.
Yeah, giving, being so safe around others' property, that they'd leave their most precious possessions in your capable hands, completely unconcerned with what would happen to it. That would be cool to have that kind of purity, wouldn't it? Giving up the highest dharma, discounting the scriptural way of the other schools. Again, a bodhisattva would be, what would that look like? Admiring other people's practices, don't you think? Rejoicing in other people's practices. Checking our own mind to see if we're comparing, like we do it so swiftly, compare ourselves, and then we have a judgment about somebody. And if in our judgment, right, we find ourselves higher than, equal to, or lesser to, we haven't studied Bodhisattva's way of life yet, but it comes there. And how we interact differently with someone that we see ourselves above, then equal, then below. And it's like, can we recognize that we're doing that and turn on our bodhicitta instead? And then where is bodhicitta in there? Is it above? Is it equal? Is it below? It's like none of the above, right? It's just, I care about you. I care about you. What would that feel like to be in the presence of somebody who, like, that's what you get from them, is like, I care about you. It would feel nice, wouldn't it? Most of the time, right, we're doing this in our interactions with people, appropriately so. But imagine being the bodhisattva that just cares about the other, whether it's the bird or the goldfish or the neighbor, or, right, your precious child, or, doesn't matter who, to feel this outflow of concern for them, love for them. Sweet. That's where this is taking. That's where all of this is taking us, is to that awareness of our own being, to be so outflowing. Right? Whereas our ordinary is everything coming at us, and we're learning to be this outflow. Yeah. How are we doing for time? Next one is avoiding causing an ordained person to lose their vows. So the opposite would be admiring and holding our own proper behavior around an ordained person. Yeah. Yeah, it's their vows. It's up to them to keep their vows. But as a bodhisattva, we would be concerned about how our behavior contributes to the ease with which they keep their vows. So then could we extrapolate that into our interaction with other people not ordained? Are we concerned with how our behavior influences the other's choice of their behavior, such that our influence on them is to help them choose kindness versus selfishness? Back to setting the example, right? Being a good example. Oh, the next is the 5 misdeeds. So, the opposite would be kind and helpful to your parents, whether you like them or not. So sorry. Be kind and helpful to people ahead of you on your path. Like the arhat, we're not supposed to kill an arhat. How do I know if somebody's an arhat or not? But anybody ahead of me on my path, anybody ahead who looks to be ahead of me, you know what I'm trying to say. Admire, help them. Schism and trying to harm a Buddha. I mean, we'll avoid trying to harm anybody, right? And then opposite behavior is even going out of our way to protect somebody, which how often do we have that? Well, every time we drive, every time we walk along the street, every time we do anything, we have an opportunity to be protective of somebody else, it seems, through our own behavior. And then schism. So there's that judgment about others, and comparing self and others comes up again. Schism means being the cause or contributing to the cause of breaking up a group of people. And so the opposite would be what? Being the instigator of bringing people together, wouldn't it? And how do we bring people together? I mean, literally, right? You organize a group, but to bring people together means that other people would need to like or think highly of other people. And is that coming across? So it's like if Pia and I are having a discussion, I could intentionally say something nice about Ale. And because I've said something nice about Ale, the idea is that Pia will think a little bit more highly about Ale because I think highly about Ale. And then when Pia and Ale get together, that influence is going to have some effect, theoretically, right? So like the opposite is when we get together, we talk about somebody else, and I say something negative about somebody else, has the opposite effect. And the result is Pia doesn't like that other person a little bit less. A little bit more, you get what I mean. So our behavior as the bodhisattva to avoid schism is to praise people to other people, because that increases then the likelihood of those two people liking each other a little bit more and getting along a little bit better. So, you know, how good am I at admiring the person I'm with and sharing my admiration for somebody else with them in the course of my conversation? Like, would a bodhisattva make it a point to always say something nice about somebody else to somebody anytime we were in conversation? And then when that's planting seeds for you, how's that going to ripen someday? What are you going to be hearing out of the mouths of other people? People praising other people, right? Cool. Instead of all the meh, 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 meh. Thank you. That helped me. Next one is holding wrong views. So the opposite is confirm your view, your worldview, over and over and over again. Tell yourself the pen. Pretend you're telling the pen story to somebody else. Like, hear yourself explaining. Do it in your mind again and again. Ask yourself the questions that come up again and again and again. We're planting seeds in our imagination, just like in non-imaginary life. Okay. Grow our worldview. Lost my place. The next one was from today's class. I will avoid destroying towns and such. So what would the opposite look like?
Taking care of your town, for example, and recycling everything and
Yeah.
putting the things in the right container instead of everything away.
Right. Yeah, I like that. We like to pick up garbage. Yeah.
Just
Yes, Coley.
things clean also. And if
Yeah.
you have a dog, for example, you can bring some water with you.
Mhm.
And then when they make pee-pee, then you can clean these or
Right.
things like that.
Yeah, such little things. You know, wipe
Maybe-
down the sink in the public bathroom. So easy. Yes, Ola.
Maybe help other towns or countries.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Kong Li's hand is up.
Yes. Teacher, I wonder why there's a destroying a city here, because all the 18s are talking about Hinayana, emptiness, Mahayana, and then suddenly there's a destroying a city here. So, I mean, why this one is so different, and then I mean, would I want to
Right.
put it here?
Because if someone who is professing to be a bodhisattva, who's in charge of a country, who then somehow justifies themselves needing to have more resources in order to take care of their country as the good bodhisattva that they are, they decide they need the resources of their neighboring country, so they'll just go get it. It's the antithesis of a bodhisattva, but the bodhisattva could be saying, yeah, but it's my people I need to take care of better. They have the resources I need for my people, so I justify going to get it.
Oh, but then this one is the old time, isn't it? And isn't it like, you know, the Bodhisattva, I mean, they want to take care of everyone, and then not to say that yours and theirs, you know.
Right.
So yeah, so I mean in a way that, you know, I suppose this one is a old kingdom last time.
Well,
But
it means if you're the bodhisattva who's in charge of an area and could make the decision to go and destroy an area, and you do it. So, right, you and I can't break this vow
so
because
which
we're
means
not
this
in a
one,
position.
so I mean this one is talking about a Bodhisattva who is in charge. If let's
Yeah.
say yeah, okay, thank
Right.
you.
Right. But what if we're in charge of our, I don't know, what if we're in charge of our group at work? And in order for our group's project to be more successful, we determined that, you know, we should go, I don't know, overrun the neighborhood next door and, you know, wipe out its ability to compete with us so that our project, which is good for the whole world, can be more successful. And it's like a bodhisattva would never think that. How crazy that. Why do you need a vow? Well, because apparently it happens. And so, right, the vows are only here because humans have a tendency to do stuff like this.
Oh, because I thought that, you know, now we are teaching, if let's say you want to get something, we need to try to help somebody to get it instead of like, you know, yeah. So that's why this one, when, you know, it comes out, I mean, this one purposely there's a sentence about this one. I'm curious about this. That's why, yeah.
Not
I
everybody who learns about being a bodhisattva has the keen awareness of anything I want for myself, I need to go and see myself helping others get it first. Not everybody has that awareness. When we say karma and emptiness, the marriage of karma and emptiness, when we say purify and make merit, we think a certain, right, sequence of thoughts based on our training, but not everybody has this training.
Oh, so this one is to restrain whoever has this kind of thought, you know, so to let them know this is not, I mean, you're not supposed to do this.
Right. So it's our responsibility to show by example that you don't destroy somebody else's property for one's own personal gain in whatever way, shape, or form that might be in our own world.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I understand. Yeah, thank you.
And so to flip that around, as we said, we would do everything we could to protect others' things or others' property or even help them thrive. No, we would, if there's a neighborhood garden that benefits the other neighborhood, not my neighborhood, would I go help their garden be better for that group without any, you know, saying, well, can my group have some of those vegetables? Would they probably give me vegetables? Probably so. But do you see bodhisattva attitude is so focused so differently. And just in this little exercise, that's what we're trying to visualize. What would I be like if I had the bodhisattva qualities that keeping these vows are growing in me, right? The goodness of the vow of avoiding that behavior is growing the goodness that will ripen as my ability to be the bodhisattva that does the opposite of these things. So envision yourself as this already built up bodhisattva by way of having kept these vows well, what are you going to be like? Praising others, admiring others, helping others, protecting places, right? Victor, what you got?
I think this vow number 10 actually remind me of one thing is especially in this business world, you know, people they are like in a very competitive environment, then they will like cut price and to cause other, I mean, same industry or similar industry to die out. So actually it's like destroying, to me it's like, yeah, more or less like destroying a town because you are destroying a group of people's their livelihood. I think
Yeah,
this is what it could happen, yeah, very frequently. Yeah,
great point. Great point.
thank you.
Oh, we still have 5 minutes. Let's use it. Teaching emptiness to a person not yet mentally prepared. The opposite is helping people be prepared. I don't know. The opposite is not teaching emptiness. I'm not sure how to do that one. Causing a person to turn back from total enlightenment. Again, encourage others to their highest goals. Even if their goal is not total enlightenment, just encouraging them to reach for their highest would be helping with this. Causing someone to give up the morality of freedom. Again, to me, setting example by our own morality. But you know, it's one thing to, like, we have our own level of morality, our choices that we make. And then when I'm in the company of other people, I'm still holding my morality, but I'm not verbalizing why I'm doing it. And I have to admit, I'm not usually brave enough that when like a group of people is choosing to go there and I choose not to, I don't say, I say, excuse me, but no, thank you. I don't say, excuse me, no, thank you, and this is why. I'm not brave enough to do that because unless they ask, why not? Well, because if I see myself doing this, it's going to come back to me in this way, and that's unacceptable to me. So, you go have fun. But if they don't ask, I'm not brave enough to say. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's like all of these things about other people, us criticizing or putting down or discouraging somebody from their morality. Nobody wants to be told what morality to do unless they've asked about it. So all we can do is set an example, right? And at some point, when they ask, we explain why. But then, if people aren't asking me why, it's because I'm not asking them why. So maybe I need to ask other people why they're choosing what they're choosing. If I want to be asked why, that just occurred to me. I'll think about that. Okay, we didn't finish our exercise of imagining your bodhisattva being, but you can continue if you like. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help at the beginning of the study of our vows. We've learned a lot that we will use sooner or later to help them in that deep and ultimate way. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be pleased with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy beings. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with Chris and her husband who's undergoing surgery. To share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with the wisdom of loving kindness. And may it be so. All right. Thank you, my dears. Thank you for doing your homeworks.
Thank you, teacher.
Yep, I will see you. What's today? Monday. See you Friday. Have a great
All right.
week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.